Right now, the president's COVID-19 response team is headed by Dr. Fauci, and the new CDC director is holding their very first briefing. It's via a Zoom call, as you can see to the left of the screen. We are going to monitor this on the Faulkner Focus for highlights in the news. Meanwhile, President Biden already is facing some criticism for his administration's messaging and overall handling of one of his signature campaign issues. The Washington Times, with an op-ed titled "Biden's Stumbling, Bumbling First Steps on COVID-19 Expose His Weak, Feeble Plan." The president and his press secretary are already having to correct a number of misstatements and contradictions. We put them together for you. Take a watch.
We're going to beat this virus. We're going to get it under control.
I am not going to shut down the economy, period. I'm going to shut down the virus as this pandemic rages on, because there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months. Well, I'm going to shut down the virus, but I never said I'd do it in 2 months. I said it took a long time to get here. It's going to take a long time to beat it.
What date or roughly when do you think anyone who wants one would be able to get it? Is it summer? Is it fall?
Oh, I know. I think it'll be this spring.
The fact is, every American is not going to be eligible this spring.
We want to give credit to everyone involved in this vaccine effort and the prior administration, but it's also no secret that we have recently discovered in the final days of the transition, and it wasn't until the final days we got the kind of cooperation we needed, that once we arrived, the vaccine program is in worse shape than we anticipated or expected.
Well, it's always uncomfortable when the President of the United States is followed by his press secretary with these words, "The fact is." Former Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz, syndicated radio host Leslie Marshall, both are Fox News contributors. Jason, your top thoughts.
I think it's stunning that Joe Biden actually said we cannot change the trajectory of the virus, because everything that was uttered prior to the election was exactly opposite of that. I do think the reason that there are literally tens of millions of people now that have been vaccinated is because of Donald Trump's Operation Warp Speed, the leveraging of the private sector to develop multiple vaccines, and that we were on a trajectory to do about 1 million doses per day, something that Joe Biden said he wants to do. But I don't know, the bumbling that's coming out of the Biden administration, I don't think it gives anybody any confidence that they actually have a plan. For them to suggest Trump had no plan when there are tens of millions of doses actually being administered makes no sense.
Leslie.
Well, I didn't see a plan. What I saw was in the Trump administration, great job getting vaccines out there as far as contracts with Moderna and Pfizer, and getting the vaccine quicker than 20 years, as we've seen with smallpox or polio, for example. The problem was distribution. Right now, with the Biden plan, you're going to have federal, state, and some in the private sector, like CVS, for example, have a coordinated response. And that is what the problem was. Right now, the Biden administration, if you look at pure numbers, and if you talk to the powers that be, like Johns Hopkins and Infectious Disease Unit and others that are working with the White House, they're exceeding currently their trajectories, which is why the president has been able to say 1.5 perhaps million vaccines a day instead of 1 million vaccines a day. This is very fluid. So for somebody to say spring or summer or fall, now I'm hearing all of us as adults could be vaccinated by summer or fall. They still don't have a vaccine out there that they can give to children.
Right.
So this is changing constantly. I don't think it's a blunder. I think what he said is true, that he's going to kill this virus, not he personally, but we collectively. We also have to take into effect there are some people who refuse to get the virus, and how do we get, which this administration is working,
what Jen Psaki said as press secretary. Maybe they need to hire you, Leslie Marshall, but what I caught her saying was not everybody will even be eligible, and she wasn't talking about children. I mean, we have categories of people. We follow the rules, follow the line, and when one pops up, 1B, 1A, whatever it is, that's who gets the vaccine. She corrected him full stop on that. I think they're going to call you. Get ready, girl. House Republican lawmakers are now requesting a briefing on why it's necessary for National Guard troops to remain on Capitol Hill, with their deployment being extended through March. Jason.
Yeah, I think the senator's onto something. If there's a clear and present danger, if there's an imminent threat, and the local law enforcement needs backup, of course the National Guard should be there. But there isn't such a threat at this point. Remember, it was the D.C. mayor herself the day before January 6th said she wants no federal involvement. She wants no federal help. Democrats have a fundamental problem because they've been out advocating to cut police budgets at the same time, and they did so in Washington, D.C. You have Kamala Harris, who was praising, for instance, Los Angeles for cutting police budgets. They wanted to defund the police. That makes no sense. It's totally contradictory to what they're doing to have these guardsmen there in Washington, D.C. They need to be at home.
I want to get to this from Senator Tom Cotton, who wrote in a Fox News op-ed today, last summer as left-wing mobs rioted in the streets, I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times titled, "Send in the Troops." This argument outraged many on the left. But when a different mob, chanting different slogans, threatened our U.S. Capitol, many of my critics sang a different tune. The National Guard answered the call at a critical time, but its mission is now complete. It's time to send home the troops. Again, Senator Tom Cotton. Leslie, why are they still there?
Well, according to federal law enforcement, who reported in the past 24 hours to the Associated Press that they have found numerous chatter online about threats and a potential second insurgency attempt the week of or the weeks of the impeachment trial in the Senate. This is why both Capitol Police and federal law enforcement have requested that a certain number of National Guard troops remain to protect our legislators, both Democrat and Republican. This isn't political. This is about protection. Capitol Police have already talked to both the left and the right, Republicans and Democrats, who had their jaws dropped at how unsafe they had been kept, quite frankly, on January 6th. And certainly law enforcement doesn't want to see that happen again when they do see rumblings online of, quite frankly, they had said specifically, physical harm to potential legislators.
Well, reportedly they want that help now because they failed. They didn't communicate any of that. And Jason, we know that because there were other entities that were walked right by as some of these people were on their way to the U.S. Capitol, that the things that were going to be threatening were not communicated. So, of course, these same leaders who are still in those positions, yeah, it's called CYA.